John Delarose recently tweeted, "The new book by Yellow Flash and Dillard is up. Let's push this over 1 million." This weekend, Yellow Flash and John Dillard launched their comic, The Mighty Golden Patriot. They are defying cancel culture. They are fighting the woke mob. This weekend, Yellow Flash made a whopping $50,000. Wokeness is officially dead. Rachel Zegler is crying. And do you know who else is crying? Ethan Van Sciver, the creator of Cyberfrog and 30-year veteran of the comic book industry. Yellow Flash has humiliated Ethan Van Sciver with his $50,000. Ethan Van Sciver is shaking, pissing his pants, and crying right now. And you might be wondering why. Just a year ago, Ethan Van Sciver made a sales prediction for Yellow Flash's sales metrics. Just take a look at how hilariously wrong he was.
JJ Trujillo says, "What's your sales projection for Flash's comic?" Oh, that's a good question. Thank you for asking. I haven't really thought about it too much. All right, so should be 9% of his. He should be able to monetize 9 to 10% of his base, which is he's got like 500,000. He's got like Eric's numbers. Here's the difference between like Yellow Flash and Eric. Is that Eric built up a whole big thing. Don't forget, like the reason why Eric had so much success with ISOM #1 is that Eric July just created an entire mythos of promotion and marketing. This guy knows how to market shit. He does. On Ripaverse being like, we will win, we're the answer to, woke and all this stuff. We're going to compete against Marvel and DC. We're going to kill them. He had a whole big thing, like a whole big reason. In order to sell something, you've got to find a need, and then you've got to, give people a reason to buy. So, Eric July, like, he found a need. This is, what he did was he said, Comicscape books are late. My books are going to be on time. Found a need. Reason to buy. We will win. We're going to defeat Marvel and DC. Everything's woke right now. We're going to not be woke. That turned out to not be true. And those were the two things that he needed to just blow out the doors. And he did. Like, so he monetized 9% of his group. Now, Yellow Flash, on the other hand, hasn't marketed his comic at all. When you look at the way Eric marketed his stuff as opposed to how Yellow Flash markets his, there's no interest on Yellow Flash's part. He barely seems like he cares. He hasn't prepared and lubricated his audience to be supportive of his comic book the way that Eric did. Eric was like, we're going to do it. You guys, this is for you. You have to gatekeep the fuck out of the Ripaverse. This is your fandom, and it's going to be your go-to form of entertainment. Like, Eric really, like, he got in there into all his fans' buttholes with, like, butter and lube, and he prepared to fuck them. Like, he got ready. Now, so that was crude. I'm sorry. Yellow Flash has done none of that work. None of that prep work at all. So I think that his performance is not going to be. They're saying 7 figures, maybe. No. My guess is I'm feeling 350. 350 to 500. I'm feeling something like that right now with his book. His audience I just don't think that they're prepared to really back the same way that they did with Eric. Eric's powers are down as well. That's what I'm feeling, but I'm prepared to be like completely blown out of the water and proven wrong. But I get like a little spider sense about all this stuff, and yeah.
Honestly, there's no coming back after such a flawed prediction. Here, Ethan not only explains how much he thinks Yellow Flash will make, but also explains why. Here, Ethan hilariously claims that Yellow Flash will likely make between $350,000 and $500,000. And so far, he's only managed to rake in 1/10 of that. Now, of course, some of you guys may point out that Yellow Flash's campaign has just begun, and there's still plenty of time till July when Yellow Flash could make substantially more. But Ethan Van Sciver explains how the majority of the momentum in a crowdfunding campaign lies within the first 48 hours.
People are saying, well, where do you think it's going to get now? Because before I said 1 million, 2 million. Based on these numbers, it's looking like 150. But I don't know, because there's the variable of Friday Night Tights. There's the variable of all the different. But I think even then, see, the way that it works is, with daily promotion, the first 24 or 48 hours, 48 hours is, 48 hours just to be safe. first 48 hours of your campaign is 1/3 of your final total over the course of any span of time, basically. So, $40,000. So you're looking at 120, and then you might want to throw in an extra 30 grand there just to cover the razzle dazzle of the Gary Neurotic audience. Like maybe he could get this thing to sell, but I don't think so because it's just not good.
And if you're a little skeptical, I think it's probably a good idea if you take a look at how Eric July's other campaigns had previously performed. Here, a YouTuber named Greg Foreman, aka the Black Conservative Perspective, explains how he felt about ISOM 1's performance.
The initial proof of success. I mean, the guy raised $1 million in 24 hours. I mean, that to me shows that people are excited about what he's putting out and that he may have a chance to become big, to take down the big boys, Marvel and DC. But
ISOM 1 broke $1 million in 24 hours, and in the end the campaign ended up getting $3.75 million. Something that Ethan Van Sciver had mentioned is that Eric July was a master at marketing. He set his campaign up as a sort of solution to woke comics.
Comic book characters are getting a woke makeover. We've been telling you about this. But you have a new comic book publisher promising to ignore cancel culture, and it is paying off. Rippaverse's debut, comic book number one, ISOM, is number one, nearly made $3 million already, showing no signs of stopping.
This excitement of this fight between wokeness and cancel culture had spread all across the internet, catching the eyes of many libertarian and conservative political commentators. While Yellow Flash and Eric July are both political commentators that sort of look at things through the lens of the culture war, there is a very key difference between the two of them, and all of that has to do with the legwork that Eric July had put in the marketing of his campaign. This is what Ethan Van Sciver was explaining when I asked him about Yellow Flash's sales metrics over a year ago. Because Eric had managed to cultivate a brand, he was able to monetize about 9% of his audience. Regardless, almost a third of his money was earned in the first 24 hours of his campaign. And the margin of total money earned in the first 24 hours only increased as time went on. Eric's next campaign, ISOM 2, would also earn $1 million in the first 24 hours.
Hello, guys. Welcome. I am Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here with Yanzi Lin, and we are talking about the news, the big word on the street in crowdfunding comics. And this would be Eric July's ISOM number 2. Now, ISOM number 1 obviously came out last year, broke some records. I think maybe the record, and raised over $3.7 million on a comic. But today is a day of celebration because right now, a little over 12 hours into this campaign, we are looking at a whopping, where are we at now?
Over $800,000 basically. And I think we can totally call it and say in the first 24 hours, it's going to be $1 million campaign.
I'm just pointing there. $1 million. That's where the ball's going.
That was a little less than half of the total earnings. His campaign Yairo would also earn $1 million in 24 hours, but for the majority of the campaign it stayed stagnant at around $1.2 million, reaching $1.5 million after he launched some action figures. I think at most this is probably just going to be a quarter of his total sales, which would put him at $200,000, but I think it's likely below that, maybe at a third or possibly as much as half. In fact, if I was a betting man, I'd put this at just a little bit over $100,000. Of course, I could be totally wrong, but that's really how I see it tracking. Interestingly enough, this wasn't the first time that Ethan had made an incorrect prediction about a campaign. Look at what he thought ISOM 2 would do.
Alpha Suma for $20 says, please pass this to Eric. 3.7 is an odd number. I'd like to see him at 3.8. Well, thank you, but I'm going to keep your $20. And yes, I agree. I think he's going to get 4.2 with issue 2. That was my prediction.
He got those sales metrics by looking at how much he had sold on Cyberfrog 2 and just copied and pasted that to Eric's audience. I think there is an X factor which explains the difference between Ethan's and Eric's numbers. And I think that Ethan failed to calculate this X factor in this equation. And that X factor is quality storytelling. A few months ago, Eric had actually botched the printing of his own book, ruining a double-page spread. He hadn't even sent these books out to his customers. So how did he solve it? Did he just order new books that were printed correctly? No. He sent them anyway and made a bit of an apology video. If Eric considered his books art and he cared about them, this is something he would have solved beforehand. But with the Rippaverse, respecting the customer isn't the #1 priority. If it was, he would make sure to give them the proper book, printed in the way that it was intended to be. In my previous video, Comic Artist versus Con Artist, Eric July versus Dan Lawless, I explained the difference between an actual artist and someone who doesn't care about his work, someone who's only trying to make money. But the truth is, you don't have to be a skilled and talented artist like Ethan Van Sciver or Dan Lawless to figure this out. Mugen Lord, another indie comic book creator, had talked about how one of his books was printed wrong, and rather than shipping these misprinted books to his audience, he decided to get a new order and fix them. Mugen Lord, like Eric July, hasn't dedicated his entire life to creating comic books and visual storytelling. But unlike Eric July, he doesn't want his customers to get an inferior product. So Ethan Van Sciver's critical error when guessing how well ISO 2 would do was missing the X factor, which is the quality behind the story and art, and also care for the creations that these artists and writers are making. Now I could be totally wrong. Maybe Yellow Flash will end up making almost $500,000 like Ethan originally predicted. But I think customers are going to know the X factor is missing. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, or
you are a hoe ass